Houston is bouncing back from Hurricane Harvey, but there's a lot of work that remains. And as I say, we are bouncing back. The reality is that there's still families and children that are still coping with the past effects, the effects of Hurricane Harvey. I've spoken a lot in the last year about recovering from the storm and becoming more resilient as a city, about building back, but not necessarily building back, about how to build forward and to bring our families and our children forward. But today we are specifically here for the children of Houston, focusing on their recovery from the trauma and stress of the storm. And I can only imagine as our kids, and they do watch a lot of television, to see all of the images coming from the Carolinas. For kids, families who experienced that just a year ago, it brings back those memories. And so they are constantly reliving that trauma. And I know that they can empathize and see themselves in that same situation as families and children are dealing with it on the East Coast. We did our best to make sure kids and their displaced families receive shelter, clothing, and food, and initial counseling after the flood. I'm still very grateful to those principals and teachers that left their homes, their schools, and went to the George R. Brown shelter or went over to NRG and found their kids in those shelters. I'm very thankful for the people who set up the play stations at the shelter to try to give them a sense of normalcy. I'm thankful for the library, for example, for making books available to our kids to try to get them through those situations. But now we must ensure that their minds are recovering and growing stronger as they try to cope with the long-term aftershocks of the storm. And some might think that we waited too long. But experts like the ones here today tell us that trauma from such a massive disruption typically peaks 18 months afterwards and can last for years. And it's also important that we have to be mindful that many of these kids were already living a life of stress before Hurricane Harvey. For many of these families and these children, they were already on the margins of life. The storm just pushed them down a little bit further. So for many of these families, they've been dealing with stress a long time. This just added to their anxieties. And that's why it's important for me to stand with these great organizations as they get ready to go into every part of the city to learn more about the emotional and social needs of our kids. I hope the public will attend their public meetings in each council district and help the experts find out if children have enough access to affordable, effective mental health services and what to do if they don't. I could already answer that question for you already. They don't, okay? If parents and other adults understand behaviors that result from trauma and know how to react and help in a healing way, not in a hurting way. And I can answer that. In many cases, parents don't. And what we can do to make sure Houston is the best place to raise children who are empowered to cope with misfortunes they encounter. I can think of no better place, better work than to ensure the health and well-being of the next generation of Houstonians. The best we can do is to do everything we can to strengthen emotionally, physically, spiritually our children, to lift them up. And they're still trying to process things in their own way. And for some kids, the question may be, why has it happened to my family? And why are we going through this? A lot of questions that are going through their minds, a lot of things that they're thinking that they're not expressing. But we have to help them to kind of walk through these processes and to let them know that they are not forgotten, that we have not forgotten them, we are not leaving them behind, and do everything that we can to stabilize, provide stability for these families, for these children, to put a smile on their faces. But at the same time, to lift them from where they were even prior to the storm, during the storm, but to elevate the lives of their families and their community. Because it's not about individual help. is about improving the families, the neighborhoods, the communities in which these kids live. You can give them a better roof, so to speak, or a bed, or put some clothes on their backs. But if the conditions in which they're living, the environment remains the same, you do not erase the trauma in their lives. So let me thank all of the organizations. Let me thank you for your hard work, for your dedication, your compassion, being sensitive. But I am a firm believer that if it can be done, there's no better place where you'll see it happen than right here in the great city of Houston. So thank you.